Welcome to another episode of Knives Monroe versus the podcast. I'm Knives Monroe. How you guys doing? Good Sunday morning. I'm here with a dear friend. Very excited to have on the podcast. First time ever. It's first time ever we really chatted outside of Facebook Messenger. Trey, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. Happy to be here. It is true. We haven't actually had a real conversation ever before. So this is pretty new for me to meet somebody like this, but it's super cool.
It's cool to have you, man. All it took was just the world ending.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Thank God the world's ending or we never would have met.
Thanks, Apocalypse. Appreciate you. Let me ask you, man, where are you at right now?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, before we get into more about where you're from, what you're doing, what you've done in the past, and what you have to look forward to, how has this epidemic been treating you and your family? How's it impacted you?
Well, I work from home. I have my own business, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom. So it hasn't been a huge difference because we're both home so much already.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I'm ready for it to go away.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to just go work and shoot and go to the gym, just whatever, little stuff.
Yeah. Do you have family over there outside you and your wife?
My brother lives here, and my niece and nephew live here.
How are they doing?
They're doing okay. Everybody's kind of just stuck where they are, but yeah, that's most of what I have here. So I have a huge family in Texas and also Denver, Colorado.
Right. I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah.
So, what do you do for work right now?
I do video production. So we we provide like all types of different things for local businesses here in Jacksonville. Really just helping businesses communicate who they are, what they do, how they're different. Also, putting systems in place that can streamline things that they do. So if they have sales agents, we get sales tools in their hands so that they can multiply their sales. And, instead of knocking on one door at a time, you're knocking on, thousands at a time with these tools. So
Holy smokes, that's legit. Like, are you talking about Salesforce or something?
just videos that basically are, keeping you from repeating yourself over and over. Like if I'm working for a company and I'm selling something, I can only talk to one person at a time. But if I capture my message in a video and that's in my email signature and it's, part of my daily routine with how I engage people, now it's something that is accelerated. So
Yeah, so that's really interesting stuff. That's I want to get it more into the what and the how as far as sort of video production theory. I'm fascinated about that. It's kind of like I feel filmmakers, especially now more than ever, and I'm going to call you a filmmaker, a video production person. It's just where I come from, right? I feel like some of us are magicians that keep our tricks as a secret from other filmmakers away. Like, I'm not going to tell you everything, right? So I'm always fascinated to know how people do stuff behind the scenes. So I definitely want to get into that. But I'm curious, Trey, how many birthdays have you had?
41.
That can't be true.
41.
Are you 41 years old? I thought you were my age.
Yeah, it's 1978, July 18th.
What?
Yeah.
I am shocked. Everybody in the comments, who looks older, me or Trey? That's not even funny. Oh my gosh. I would have never guessed. That's so cool. Okay, so now this changes a lot. 41 years young. That's cool. Where were you born and what did your parents do?
I was born in San Antonio, Texas. My dad has had a auto repair shop, and he had a big car lot, and he had a body shop. He did that like pretty much my whole life, and then he sold his business a couple years ago. My mom was a nurse who's also retired now, so that comes with being 41. You have parents that are retired at that point. So
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. And growing up, what was that like for you in elementary? Did you have siblings? What was that like? Did you go to high school in San Antonio?
yeah, yeah, I moved halfway through high school. I moved here to Florida. Yeah, I had a brother and then two sisters that came much later on.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm 16 years and 20 years older than my two sisters. But yeah, I just had a big close family in San Antonio, and really good close friends. I've always been blessed to have a tight circle of good people around me my whole life. It's just been like a constant theme.
Mhm. Were any of your parents in the military?
Mm-mm. No.
Okay, 'cause it
Well,
sounds like San
that-
Antonio is obviously a big military city,
yeah, right,
and
right.
Florida has a big military presence as well, so I wasn't sure if
Correct.
your
Yeah.
mom or dad were moving around.
Yeah, nuh-uh. No, no military.
Okay, that's cool. So why'd you move to Florida in the middle of high school?
My parents got divorced, and my mom, remarried my stepdad, who was doing a residency to be a doctor. So he had to come out here, and I actually was at a boarding school for 2 years, and I would visit my mom here in Jacksonville like every month. And
Okay.
I just she made me move out here. I was just like I was falling apart.
Yeah. Dude, divorce during that age has gotta fucking suck. It's gotta suck. My
Yeah,
parents got divorced, I was 5 years old. It wasn't fun either, but it was young enough where, my I wasn't just split into 2. My mom was like, "You're coming with me, that's it," and I never saw my dad again, you know?
yeah.
What was that like at that age? That's such a I couldn't imagine.
Well, it tore me up when I found out what was happening. Um, I think I think the harder part is, going forward 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, like the lingering effects. That's been the hardest part, because when
Mm,
I was 16, I was like in love with high school and friends, and like it was a rush. Like all through high school was a rush. But then,
of course.
20 years later, when it's time to sit down at the Thanksgiving dinner table, and you're trying to put all the pieces together, and who's coming this year and who's not, and oh, so and so's in the picture now, and it's not like last
Yeah.
year, and next year will be. It's just like it never goes away.
Yeah. How old were you when you had your first child?
41.
Okay, so you have a brand new newborn, brand spanking new, hot off the presses.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so it's been I don't know if you've had enough time to process this, but I'm projecting here. I grew up with a lot of mom, daddy issues, baggage of just like, if you've ever seen Fresh Prince of Bel Air, there's this
yeah,
whole episode where the dad comes back in the picture for Will Smith, and then he just leaves him again. And Will has this great, supposedly improvised moment where he says, "Man, why doesn't my dad love me?" Right? And as a kid, I felt that shit. I was like, "How could you just abandon your child?" I never understood that, and I'm 32 years old. I've been a dad and a stepfather, which I don't talk about too frequently because it's just being a dad.
yeah,
I love my stepson and my blood daughter so intensely, and sometimes some days in different ways. But still, I would die for both of them. It's just
sure,
nothing's gonna change that. But before I had my birth daughter in 2014, I remember she wasn't my wife at the time, but my girlfriend who I knocked up, Claire, who's been on this podcast many times,
yeah,
she said, Don't worry, it's going to be fine. You have the dad gene." And I was like, that can't be because my father abandoned me, and like his father was a piece of shit, and that it was just like the whole bloodline of just terrible dads. But when my daughter came to this planet and I saw her be born, I was like, oh my God, I love this thing. Like instincts I had no idea were there kicked
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And just kind of a tangent, but
Oh, I
a
love
couple
it.
couple months ago, my brother had a baby, so I went to South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, to be there, and I got to hold my niece, who was just like a couple minutes old,
Yeah.
and instincts that I didn't know were there. Because now that I have my kids are a little older, I don't, change their diapers and shit, but like all these dad instincts kicked in where I just wanted to rock this baby and hum to the baby and feed, and I was like, wow, all these things are there. I was so
Yeah.
grateful because a part of me was like, what if I have a kid and those instincts aren't there? Like, what if I don't give a shit about my kid?
Yeah.
I was so afraid of that. So do you feel like that all that just to ask, like, do you feel that divorce baggage, it's always, it can never be buried. It's always right at the surface, and having a child now, like, do you have to confront that, and how do you reckon with that if you do?
There might be some subconscious connections, um, but I think when I was in my late 20s, I moved in with this family from my church,
Mm.
and I was at that point I was always afraid that I would be able to have a family because it was hard to imagine just being at home all the time with the same people all day long.
True.
And this family that I was with at the time, I lived with them for about 2 years. They had two sons, husband and wife. The father really encouraged me to be there more because
Mm.
he could see that I kept running around and spending all my time with friends all over the place, and he was trying to instill that familyness inside of me. So I started doing it. I started being around more, and I realized that I could do it.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I could be a family man. I'm here. I'm doing it. I can see it, And then the next piece was, just praying for the right woman,
Mhm.
and that's not something that I mean. 10 years later, I was married. It was a long ways before I actually met my wife, Sophia, and I had been in other relationships prior to that, and I doubted, man, I can't see myself being a father with this person.
Yeah.
I met my wife, she just gave me the confidence. I knew I was like, I can see myself being a dad with her. Like the way she's gonna love me, the way she's gonna love the kid, I'm in. Let's go, like 100%.
Yeah, that's when you know that you've really found somebody. It happened that way similarly to me as well. I was one of those guys. I was like, I don't want to be a dad. I don't want to get married until I found the woman that I wanted to trap. And I was like, this is the one. This is the girl. And same thing with children. Like when I met my stepson, I was like, this is my guy. I was like, I love this guy. I'd want to be a part of his life. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would have. I mean, he knows this, but if it wasn't for my son Aiden, who was 7 when I met him, I don't know if my daughter would exist because I really wanted to be, linked to this kid somehow. I loved him so much. So totally, man, that's what it takes. Sometimes you don't know it till you see it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
What was it about your wife at that time before she was your wife where you were like, this is the one?
I've always had a
Not
lot
to put
of
you on the spot.
whatever you want to ask. I've always had a lot of like confidence in the way I can read people, and I think
Mhm.
that's why I've always been fortunate. One reason that I've been fortunate to have good people in my life. Um, but I could just see that. I just saw a mother and a wife in her. I mean, I don't know if I could break it down, but she just was, nurturing and unselfish, and she loved kids, and she had a really close family. She comes from she's Lebanese, so in her family, that's like, I mean, they all hang out constantly. They're like super tight. Like even now, her family lives down south, and they FaceTime like it's nothing, just always.
Mhm. Is that like do you feel like that's a little different than how you grew up?
Um, Gosh, that's a great question. Because I grew up with a tight family,
I'm not too on
but
the up and up about Lebanese culture. That's why I ask.
but in my family, you kind of grow up and move away, sort of thing, and then all get back together for
Mm,
Christmas and family reunions. And you're still
mm.
close, but I feel like in the Lebanese culture, it's more like there's not so much of that. You're moving on into your own life kind of thing.
Huh. Very interesting. So you've
Yeah.
gotten to know her family a little bit, would you say?
Oh yeah, that was mandatory. I had to drive. We lived 4 hours apart when we met. We met on a dating app. So I had to drive and meet her dad immediately. And he
Oh
sat,
man.
he sat me down in the living room. And I mean, I had met him like not even 5 or 10 minutes. And now we're sitting down in the living room. He's there, my wife, her sisters, her brother. They're all there just like looking at me. And I just met all of them. And her dad was asking me stuff like, uh, what do you want to do with my daughter? And he said, so you like younger women? I said, I like Sophia. And, he's like, if you respect us, we're going to respect you. If you ever do anything to hurt my daughter, I'm going to hurt you. And
Wow.
I, I,
Wow. He had. Oh,
I actually really appreciated it. And I was looking forward to it because I knew how I felt about her. I was eager to show him, like, I see what you're doing. You're calling me out, and I'm totally ready to prove to you that I'm really like serious about this.
yeah.
So, because people beat around the bush so much, and I don't know. I don't like that. I like when
Yeah.
someone respects you and they're direct and you know what they're thinking. So it was
They
great.
cut the crap. Yeah. They just cut the bullshit and go right for it. No, I agree. We dance around our feelings too much. And I think because of that, we end up wasting time, right? We're not being transparent. So I think if you can save a lot of time if you just kind of cut the bullshit. You say, here are the cards on the table. And now everybody knows what we have in our hands, so to speak. And so it's kind of hard. Do you have a little boy or a little girl?
Little girl.
I mean, let's be honest. When she's that age, dating age, you might be the same way. You might want to know, like, is this the right guy? You want to know.
No, I definitely will be that way.
I mean, whether if your child's a boy or a girl, you're gonna want to know. You're gonna want to
Yeah.
know for sure, because this is your family. You're gonna bring another member, you know, into your household,
Yeah.
possibly indefinitely. So you gotta probe around.
And I,
Maybe even aggressively. I don't know. We'll find out in 20, 25 years. We'll do
yeah.
another podcast, and I'll say, hey, how's it being, you know, that guy?
Yeah, it's something that I definitely think about, even though it's a long ways away. I know it'll go by fast, but
Yeah,
100%, like I'm gonna hold myself to that. I'm not just gonna let her start running around with guys.
of course. Yeah, obviously. Same here. Same thing with my son. I'm more worried about him than anything, just because he's closer to age. He's 14, and
Yeah, he's
yeah,
there. He's there.
yeah, he's at that age. But
Yeah,
so after high school, you graduate. What was going on at that time? What year did you graduate?
97.
Okay, so 97 was the year of, I think it was right like the Titanic year. So I was in fourth grade in 97, I recall.
Yeah,
Um, so what was going on then? Independent cinema was at its peak. It was at its zenith. I can recall the pop culture, the music at the time. Did you know that, okay, I got to go to college? That's going to be my next step, or I'm gonna take a gap year, or like what was the plan?
Well, when I was in high school and I was a senior, I told my mom, I said, I'm not ready to graduate. So I'm just going to, do that next year. So I would skip class and just play ping pong all day long. We had this in elective class. It was ping pong and got really good at that. So took me 2 years to graduate high school. And even then I said, I'm not going to college. So after 1 year or not even a year of that, I started to change and grow up. And not that not that because you go to college you're grown up, but I
Right.
just started to change. And then I started going to college. But I didn't get into any film stuff until late 20s.
Hmm.
So I was a personal trainer, and I worked at the gym that I went to school at, and I even continued to work there after I graduated college there. But I always felt like I had zero interest in doing anything unless I was really into it. So I watched a lot of people like stress out because they didn't know what they were going to do for a career. I
Yeah.
never cared. I could care less, and unless I knew that it was something that I was passionate about.
Wow. So even back then, so you ended up going to college after all. What did you major in? What did you get your degree in?
Sport management.
Okay.
I mean, it was something that I like sports, and my best friend was in that major, so we took up all the classes together. So
Yeah, that's cool. And was that 4 years? Because I'm a college dropout, community college, so I really don't know much about the world.
yeah, no, I mean it could have been 4 years, but I stretched it out.
Nice, nice. And so you ended up being a personal trainer. Do you still dabble in that from time to time? Because how do you escape that life?
Um, I As I built my video business up, I started training less and less,
Hmm.
and right now I have one client with like 2 sessions left, and after that, I'm totally finished after that.
You see, yeah, it's one of those kind of hard to escape that life. I mean, health and wellness is hotter than ever. In terms of the awareness that I think like your average American, knows how to get a six pack now, right? And now it's like
Yeah,
they need to be pushed in that way. And
yeah,
diet, I've never seen in my lifetime like diet. Now my mom makes green smoothies. Shout out to my mom. But like 20 years ago,
right,
she's not fucking with kale. So yeah,
right.
that's I could see that world kind of being immensely valuable in perpetuity, even outside of the video world. And also in the video world, I've met tons of people that are like, hey, film my workout.
Yeah,
It's cinematic, right? Like I've filmed a few jujitsu sparring sessions and it's fun. You want to get in there and it's really cool. So that sounds good. So in your late 20s, how did you get bit by the video bug?
when I was a little kid, I used to pick up my mom's video camera and I would make little skits and stuff.
Hmm.
And then in college, anytime there was a chance to do a video presentation, I would always ask, or excuse me, a speech, I would ask to do a video.
Yep.
I don't know why. And then the teacher would usually say yes. Um, my good friend and my best friend in college, we used to do a lot of that Jackass kind of stuff before there was Jackass.
Oh, you're talking my language now. You're scratching my itch.
Yeah, yeah, we used to do all kinds of stuff like that, and it was all on video.
Yeah.
And then I just was doing those little random things, and a person here or there would say, "Man, you're good at that video thing. Like, you should. That's what you should do." And I was like, "Yeah, right." Like, I didn't sit at that table in high school. I sat with the guys that like sports and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it took me a long time to accept the fact that I could be creative or artistic. Like, there was a huge barrier, and
Mm.
people just kept telling me over and over, like, "Man, you're good at that. You're good at that." And then finally, I was just like, "Well, I maybe I am," and I just started doing it.
Yeah, that's the product of the time. There was like we were more segregated back then. You were either, the gym person, the jock, or you were the weird nerd who
Right?
understood aperture and ND filters and things like that. Yeah. So back then, now, I mean, the jocks are the ones
Yeah.
they're living for the gram and they have their phones and they know, so
I never thought about that, man. You're
for
right.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I graduated in '06 and even I struggled with that. Like I was considered, out there, a freak, my school was very ignorant. Like some people, I'll say there's a lot of gems, but at the time it was like, hey, real Hispanic, but hey, wait, you a freak? Like just for gosh, anything like liking wrestling, liking Jackass. Last night I was watching my wife and I don't know why we did this, but we're not fans of Taylor Swift, and I apologize if you are, but we put on a documentary called Miss Americana on Netflix that was like this puff piece about Taylor Swift. And they would cut to footage from 2003 on videotape of her being like at a talent show or some shit and being like, my name's Taylor Swift and this song's called, whatever. And it was like, oh, that's cool, like there's footage of her doing that. I told Claire, when they make the Knives Monroe documentary, the footage they're going to cut to is me pepper spraying my friends and throwing each other into canals and backyard wrestling and being like a wannabe jackass. Like I don't just say that. I'm semi proud of that, but also that's my legacy, like I recorded hitting my friends in the head with steel chairs just because I wanted to have something to edit later, like I didn't know that I was a filmmaker yet, but it was something that was there. And so do you still have videotape footage? Like, do you have the evidence of all this jackass tomfoolery?
Yes, we have like a couple hours of it.
You got to hold on to that. Then that's
It's on
precious.
VHS cassette. We need to transfer it. It's like getting worse and worse. Like every time you watch it, it gets worse.
Oh, you got to transfer it while you still can, man. For sure, for sure. I highly recommend that. Just when they make the Trey Vollmer, I hope I said your last name right. Just when they make the documentary, at the very least.
Yeah, yeah. I needed that nudge, man. It's something that I just never get around to doing.
So what I ask most creatives, like video people on this podcast, most of them have done wedding photography or videography or have at least recorded one wedding. How old were you when you did your first wedding? I'm going to assume that you did one.
I did a bunch.
It's kind of a rite of passage.
I still do them, but only like, I might do one a year. Like I'm doing one in Disneyland or Disney World. I get the two mixed up. I'm doing one of those in June. I think it's June. First one was for one of my best friends growing up. I was in the wedding and I filmed the wedding.
Whoa, multitasking.
I was, late 20s, like right when I was first getting into it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you had any disasters? Because I filmed enough to know this ain't for me. I don't want to do it personally.
No, I haven't had any disasters. I'm pretty firm about like what I take on. Um, I think that it's kind of my personality to, be careful about moving forward with things, jumping into stuff.
Smart. That's smart. Okay, that's cool. When did you get your first? I call it art money. Like when did you get your first paycheck or something being creative? Because that's when you know, oh shit, there's money in this. I can actually make a living and do this. Oh, I can be my own boss, so to speak. Like when did that first happen?
Uh, right when I got my first camera, so in my late 20s. Um, the family that I live with, one of their boys, he played in this flag football league.
Mm.
So I reached out to the guy that owned the whole thing, the guy that ran it, and just introduced myself. And I said, "Hey, man, I got this idea. I want to get out there and I want to film these games, and just sell DVDs to the parents."
Yeah,
And I said, every DVD that we sell, everybody that sees it, like they're watching your business, and
that's right.
um, I said, yeah, man, you got to let me on the field, man. Like, let me get out there, like right in the middle of it all. So I was out there with the kids and the refs, and I was set up this table, and had some flyers back in the day, just stopping people as they walk by, and
Oh yeah.
started buying these games for like $20, and that's where I first got started.
Wow, that's cool. What year was that?
Man, so this
Had to
was
have been like mid 2000s, early 2000s?
this was like 12 years ago. Yeah.
12 years ago.
12
Gosh, help me out here. I'm trying to do math. Like 2008.
Yeah, 2008. Thank God it's 2020. I would have been lost on that math.
Same. Yeah, I had to count on my fingers. Thank God I had 10 fingers. So what was your first camera? That sounds like it could have been maybe a DV, like a Sony Handycam type thing.
You remember the HV20, Canon HV20?
I always wanted that camera. Yeah, I remember.
That camera had a cult following.
Dude, was that the white one?
It was silver, and then the
Oh,
next
yeah.
one was black. It went from the
Oh,
20 to the 30.
oh, yeah, dude. That was I
Hey,
still want that camera. I still want that camera. Isn't that weird?
when I got that camera, I was so stoked. I went out into the driveway, and the garbage man was driving by, and I was filming him,
Yes.
and he was looking at me like he was staring me down, like.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just got a new camera. And like, he didn't care.
Yeah. That was this is before hybrid cameras, so that oops, popped my hip. That was a video camera. What did that record? This couldn't have been an SD cards
Mini
at the time.
DV,
So it had to
mini DV.
yeah, DV. Oh, what a pain in the ass that would be
Yeah.
today. But man, gosh, it had like a fixed lens.
Yeah.
Did it have ND filters and stuff like that?
No.
Damn. I want to say, if you did follow Jackass back in the day, Bam Margera and that crew later on went to make this indie movie that I happen to love, even though it's pretty crude, called Haggard, and I think they filmed it on cameras like that for sure.
It had a good image, man.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. That must have been a $2,500 camera back then.
Man, I don't think it was that much. I mean,
Really?
this thing was tiny. It looked kind of like this. It looked kind of like this. This is my mom's.
Okay. Yeah.
It looked kind of like that. I mean, a little more sophisticated, slightly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. There's no way it was 2,500. It was, gosh,
Okay.
man, it was probably like 1,200 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But in $2008, whoo, that was like $2,000 today, I feel.
Yeah. I didn't even have I didn't have anything. I had not, that's all I had was that.
Yeah, man. Dang, that takes me back. So 2008, and you're still obviously, being a personal trainer, or you're working in fitness as well. How are you? So much has changed in the past 12 years, 2008. Like YouTube wasn't even bought by Google yet. So if you can transport me back to 2008, Trey, like what was the plan? What were you going to do? Like, did you want to make films? Did you want to make commercials? Was LA an option? Because back in that time, it was like you got to go to LA if you want to make it, right? So what was the plan in 2008 for you?
100% wanted to get into filmmaking, and that's what I was doing for a long time, several years. Um, I was trying to figure out, do I want to be a DP or do I want to be a director? And to this day, I really enjoy both.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's originally all I wanted to do was that. But you know, fast forward 10 years, the filmmaking thing was picking up locally. Like I was meeting everybody, and was able to get a producer to fund a short film that we did.
Cool.
Had a really solid crew on this, and did a couple things like that. Was part of a team that won the local 48-hour film festival.
Nice.
So we went to LA to compete with our film out there at a Filmapalooza.
Cool.
But I don't know. Once I got to a certain point, I started feeling like it was hard to find like open doors.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is I would make a movie and go broke, and then I would do video for work. and then make another movie and go broke.
Yep.
And then at some point, I just said, man, I need more money. I
Yep.
need more money to do, because I don't know, this is just so slow and it ain't happening over here with the filmmaking. But
Mm-hmm.
the doors started opening uh way easier for the stuff I'm doing now, like doing video with businesses. The doors were opening way easier.
Yep.
So next thing I know, I got a wife and a baby in a house, and I have to provide. Like I can't provide making films.
Yeah, I know.
But ended up loving what I'm doing now. Like I I'm really happy with it.
How many years did you try to make a living producing films? Like, how long did you give that the old college try?
Oh, probably about 8 years. And I mean, I would still like
I mean,
love.
that's a lot of reps. I mean, you get to meet a lot of people during that time. There's still a lot of value. It's a lot of experience. You get to work with different DPs and maybe different directors, different writers, creative minds. So you're still stacking up.
Yep.
Excuse me, some skill during that time. 8 years is nothing to sleep on.
That's how I found out about you, though, because I was still in that like diehard filmmaker
Mm-hmm.
mode, and you were doing like you were in that was it Frugal Filmmaker on Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
You were
Yeah,
doing Facebook Live.
I hijacked that group and kind of was like a whore about it, and was like I had stuff to say, and at the time, like frugal filmmakers in that group were not trying to be like on screen personalities. Not that I was, but I knew that I could go and do this and just talk up a storm or whatever and start some shit. But also, it was right before I think people were starting to figure out that we don't need to spend $12,000 on a camera. That
Yep.
that we're going to invest in filmmaking where there's no money in, as far as in
True.
America, this whole creative middle class. Like I was like, and if you're going to produce, and if you don't have anything, use your phone. And I was just really kind of like taking this big brother approach to my fellow filmmakers who I did not want to see. There's such a camera porn culture and everything. And so I really had a lot to say during that time. So I guess around 2016, 17 is probably when we saw each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably about right. Yeah, it was just seeing you doing those Facebook Lives, because back then nobody was doing Facebook Live. Like
Yeah.
you did a Facebook Live, you were like, I mean, like super brave, like really putting yourself out there back then.
I still think you're pretty brave if you do that. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if you hear this from other people, but you were very inspiring. Like,
Oof.
hearing the things that you were saying back then. I remember having like a couple times where I just wasn't feeling motivated, and I would just watch the stuff that you would talk about, and it would give me that boost to keep going.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I think I was saying that maybe 30-40% of it was to kind of boost myself, during that particular era was like very rough financially for me. Like I was getting kicked in the teeth and I already had kids, and I had a very small apartment, but I was trying to make it, and my commute to work was like this 3 hour like this bus drive that like beats you down. It's kind of like the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, just like walking up the stairs every day just to get his prescription medication. And I felt beaten down. And so part of my refuge was just, oh yeah, I had to remind myself, I'm a filmmaker, God damn it. Even if I only have a phone, I'm a filmmaker, because poetry is in the eye of the beholder. And that's what Orson Welles said, God damn it. And if JJ Abrams was 16 years old, he'd be making Jackass films too on his phone. And I would just like, why am I just saying this in a vacuum? Let me put it out there. And so I wasn't trying to be inspiring. It was just, trying to light the fire and all of us, because sometimes, especially moments like now, which is why I was honored that you wanted to do this podcast. And this is why I wanted to kind of take a step. I kind of wanted to raise the stakes a little and do it live, which I don't always do. But it was one of those. I think now I know people. They're home. They're home around noon on a Sunday. It's a lazy Sunday for all of us. and it's going to be like that for a while. So if we can activate someone who has probably put their creativity like on the mantle and it's like, I'll get to this later. It's like, now is a good time to invest in yourself. And that doesn't mean take out a loan and buy a red dragon. That's not what I mean. I just mean, tap into the inner child that likes to play with the green screen or likes to write, or tap into that imagination, because as soon as we lose that, I feel like we're lost forever, and so thank you for that. All that just to say thanks. I'm not trying to be inspiring. I spaz out sometimes because there's sort of like these little soapboxes that I get on are kind of like notes to myself from when I'm down, because my lows are fucking low, bro. Like I hit rock bottom a few times a year emotionally, because this grind is hard, man. It's just like you. Like, it's hard to make a living, making short films and films. Like, what I do, I take photos. I do corporate videography. I make social media content. I do podcasts for other people, and that's how I pay the bills. But it was never my own web series that was going to pay my bills, so to speak. And it's like what you were saying earlier. I wrote it down as a note. You'd go broke, and then you'd have to do something, and then you go broke producing your own thing. And it's sort of this one for them, one for me idea.
Right.
And I think the reason why we do that, when we can afford to do that, is to stay sane, But I gotta tell you, like, I look at your body of work, just the stuff that I can find on the internet, and I'm like, you can tell that this guy's been doing this for 10 plus years, and the work is there, and your work is insane. And I gotta tell you, like, you're one of those guys, just from what I can tell, that was meant to do this. That takes a disciplined approach to, who tries to reach perfection in his edits. Me, I'm like, just throw it together, get it out there, put it on Instagram, it's going to be whatever. Like, I could be way better, but I'm not a videographer, I'm not a photographer, that's my secret. Like, I'm not that guy. I want to be the director that tells the person where to put the camera. I want to be the guy that tells the writer, I'm kind of going for this, and can tell the color grader, the colorist, like, I want this atmosphere. But out of necessity, because most of us are kind of one-man armies, I've been forced to, okay, well, I got to get the camera, I got to do my research, and I got to figure it out, because if not me, who? And if not now, when? So I think we're kind of kindred spirits in that way. You don't get to be able to make a living doing this without the ups and the downs. And I think a lot of kids who start nowadays, who have, gosh, I mean, it's never been easier to be a filmmaker, a creative. I think if you're starting nowadays and it doesn't happen overnight, kids just kind of feel like, this isn't for me then. And it's like, oh my God, I can't tell you how many lost years and just how many times I've been kicked in the teeth, and you have no choice but to keep going, because this is something that you love, So I can tell you're one of those people as well. So respect for staying in the game, because it's hard. It's fucking hard.
Yeah, that's interesting. What you just said, staying in the game. I think that's something that I had to figure out, because when I was a kid, I would get good at one thing and then quit and do something else.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my parents' style. Like, as long as I was happy, just do whatever you want, just don't get in trouble. And I just realized, in my late 20s, I was like, man, I need to have discipline and pick one thing that I want to be great at. Like, even if I get bored for a second, like, I can't just keep quitting on things and starting new stuff. I only have one life, So I have gotten to those moments with filmmaking and video production where, it's felt low and I haven't been as into it. But I look back and remind myself, like, I'm not gonna repeat that cycle.
And it's right there. Like, it's way easier to repeat that cycle, because then you're in control and you can kind of say, yeah, well, I mean, I stopped and, I got bored, and you can kind of blame yourself for why you're not making enough money, or why you haven't achieved what have you, you know, so we put it on ourselves. And that's a trap. That's a creative trapping, man. At least for me, like I'm probably projecting a little bit, but I have such a start stop career, you know, because I've been scared. I've been scared of success. I've turned down opportunities because I'm like, something comes so naturally to me. I'm like, nah. I'm suspicious about how easy something can be sometimes, which is self-destructive. So I don't know if you feel that way. Like, did video and everything that comes with it, whether if it's lighting and um the AV stuff, the post production, like did that stuff come naturally to you?
Yeah, it did, but even if it comes naturally, the work and the time that, as you know, goes into all that, it's like, no matter how easy it comes, it's gonna be a lot of hard work, and you're gonna have to spend years and years to even get close to what you imagine yourself being. Like, how when you first start making something and you see this amazing thing in your mind and you go make it and it looks nothing like what you wanted or envisioned, but you could create it in your mind. But over time, if I light this way and I use this camera movement and I put this lens on this camera, this is how it will look and feel. Like, you
Yep,
already you got to figure out that language though.
that's right. Oh yeah, and one of the best advice I ever got was from, do you know who Freddie Wong is?
I don't think so.
He was a like the biggest YouTuber in 2009, 10, 11. He started a company called Rocket Jump, and he would do these little um he was like very special effects heavy filmmaker, and he's this cool Asian dude. And he had said, you know, because he got, and you get these questions too, Trey, I'm sure, you know, what camera are you using? What lens are you using? What do you use to edit with? And when you meet other videographers, it's like two dogs smelling each other's butts. And it's like, what are you using? You know? And Freddie said, look, it matters, but like filmmaking is a language. And unless you have to practice that language every day to get better at it, to get fluent at it. And that was sort of this massive unlock for me in 2011 to be like, oh, yeah, like stop fetishizing the gear and just get better at the language, you know, because then when you graduate to more sophisticated and fancy gear, you'll be able to take everything that you've learned with that, right? So that's something that we don't talk about enough because it's not sexy, and it's not like selling a product. It's not selling the new Canon EOS R5 with the blah blah blah. Like it's not. I feel like people are bored or something, and they think that whatever comes out of the box is going to be the thing that pushes them to the next stage in their career. When it's like, no, you need to learn the language first. Filmmaking is a language. And I mean, it's so well put what you said. Do you have any
Can I say something to that real quick?
violence?
I like that you said something a few minutes ago about, you were paying me a compliment saying that you feel like I'm someone that was, built to do this or
Right. Came natural to you?
natural. Um, and the whole gear thing. I
Yes.
think when you're first getting started, the gear thing is very interesting. It's very exciting, but it's a dead end. I feel that anybody can be interested in buttons and settings. Anybody can figure out where the buttons are. And you can get really good at knowing all that, and that's it. But if you find that you're someone that can go beyond that and just look at human emotions and relationships and reactions and stories and feeling and pulling someone into a world and allowing them to get lost in that world, that's really where that you were built for this. You were built to do that. The people that can just swim in that, and because a lot of people are really good at the settings. All the information is online. You know, you can learn. Anybody can go and learn all this stuff, how to make something look. I want to know how to make this look exactly the way he made that look. How do I do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Da, 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 da. Now it looks exactly like what he did. I did it. You know, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but can you make somebody cry? Right.
Right.
Whole different skill.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not trying to say like, you know, one group is better than the other, but I just say that to encourage somebody that's on the fence, and maybe they're going through that transition and they don't quite see what's on the other end, but they can kind of start to see it. Like, I'm just encouraging those people to just dive into that, keep pushing through that. You know, don't get stuck on the gear.
So well put. Like, I think the tide is starting to change a little bit. And I called this sometime like in the second half of last year. And I think creators are taking a more holistic approach insofar as, because the creative middle class has gone in circles with this. Like, we've invested in the gear and it didn't make us happy. You know, we've invested $10,000 in a short that didn't get us on Netflix and stuff like that. And so that's normal. That's okay. Like, that's not shameful. That those aren't failures. I think we've just been around the block a few times. You know, we've got the 1 million subscribers on YouTube and we still don't like ourselves. Like, that kind of emotional stuff. And I think I foresee creators taking a more holistic approach insofar as how to prevent burnout, or, you know, how to be more minimal as far as, I don't need all this crazy flashy fancy videography stuff. How do I tell a story? How can I convey emotion, atmosphere? How can I work on sound as opposed to video? Like, sound is not appreciated as much as it is supposed to be, in my opinion, when it comes to these sort of productions. How do I convey a message? You know, these sort of things I think are going to be taking more precedent, especially now that we're in this epidemic. And gosh, what is it, like something like 6 million Americans filed for unemployment last month? That's nuts. So I watch some of these YouTube review camera people, which I can't help but watch because I like to know what's going on. And it's like they're selling me stuff. They're salesmen, and that's cool because they got to eat too. You know, I understand. I respect sponsorships and stuff, but and they got to eat. But it's kind of tone deaf, in that, why are we talking about that right now? Right now is not a good time to be investing in a $2,500 lens. You know, and I encourage filmmakers and creatives out there, no matter how hard it gets. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I'll lie, cheat, and steal to.
Hey, you're frozen, buddy. I don't know if you can hear me or see me, but I got you frozen over here. Hello?
Give me 1 sec, buddy.
Okay.
Let me know if you see my picture come back.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. What happens when you're doing it live? All that. Oh, God damn it! 1 sec. All that just to say, during the time of maximum pessimism, during this, it feels like an apocalypse in a lot of ways, this epidemic. Now's not the time to be worshiping like expensive gear. Now's the time. How can I double down and tell these stories, or add value to other people's small businesses or companies? Like, how do I do that now? You know, I want to see that become the priority to creators. That's something that's missing. But I feel like filmmakers, creators, they don't want to give up their cards. They don't want to show people how they do that. So I guess this is a good segue to what you do for your business. Walk me through that. How long have you had your business? What is it called? Where can we find it? And what do you do for other people?
The name of my business is Vollmer Visuals, and my website's treyvollmer.com. Started doing video for business like 12 years ago, but just within the last couple years, I started focusing on working with businesses, because before I was doing a lot of weddings and just random stuff here and there, documentaries here and there. But within the last couple years, focusing really on businesses, helping them to communicate their message, helping them to identify who they are, how they're different, what they do, just helping them to not only grow, but also streamline their processes. If it's an internal process that can be streamlined through video, um, strengthening their connections with their customers, their audience, just keeping everything streamlined.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Can we do like a little role play? Like, can I be a company and I'm asking you questions on how your business can help me?
Sure.
Okay. So what's a company that sells a product that's a good example for this? I don't want to bark up the wrong tree.
You could say
What can I sell?
pool enclosures, swimming pool enclosures.
Oh, okay. Hey Trey, so my name is Monroe with Monroe Pools. And I have a small business, but it's growing. I got 3 companies and I'm trying to take over, but there's other companies that I see that are doing commercials, they're doing videos, and it's like I just want to get on that social media stuff because I want to be able to reach out to people that I don't have. And like I have money for like an ad budget now, and it's just I don't know the first thing about video. I don't know what to do. So where do we start?
So yeah, the first thing I would say is, jumping on a quick phone call and then, hearing them out. I know you're trying to role play, but
Yeah,
I feel like, I don't know, maybe I could just explain it, but
please do.
it might be easier for me that
Okay.
way. So yeah, touch base on a phone call, and then I'm trying to get everybody to fill out my discovery form as quick as possible to make sure that we're a good fit and I can learn as much about their business as I can before meeting face to face.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's smart. That's a good bit.
yeah, so once I have some information and we can see that we're looking like a good fit, then we'll have that meeting and we'll talk more about really just what their goals are for their business in general. Because a lot of people, when they want to talk about video for their business, they already start thinking about the creative side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to get people totally away from that and have them talk about what they really care about, which is their business.
Mm-hmm. And by that, do you mean selling more products or services?
So one of the main things that I provide is called a video business card. Uh,
That's cool.
so pretty much any business that whoever you are, you could use a video business card, and especially if you have zero video in your business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 2-minute video that captures the entire essence of your whole business. It's you, the business owner, on camera talking about your business, not straight into the camera, but off to me.
Mm-hmm. Interview style.
Yeah, people get to meet the real you. So that's my whole goal in a video business card, is to not just explain what you do and how you're different, but to create that environment to where people feel like they're meeting the genuine you, because a lot of times video gets really misused and people just stand in front of the camera and they talk like this. My name is John. Like, one of the most powerful things about video is you can meet somebody without actually meeting them. So if you take that away, you might as well not even make a video. You might as well just use text.
For
So,
sure.
so creating that environment to where you meet the business owner, and you can decide, by the end of that video business card, you're going to know everything you need to know about whether or not you want to do business or not with them.
That's awesome. And when you sign a business up and they want to work with you, they have the money and they're easy to work with. They answer the phone calls, they fill out the forms, they meet you in person. They're game. They're either comfortable on camera or they're comfortable with the idea of you getting them comfortable on camera. And after you create that video business card, is that all right? Peace. See you later. What's the next step for their business that you can help them with?
It comes with a implementation, like a marketing plan. So when that whole thing's finished, you're gonna get an email with that plan, and it's gonna walk you through how to use the video business card, where to put it, and a lot of these things are things that I can see. Like if someone puts it on their LinkedIn profile or their Facebook business page, hey, you didn't pin it to the top of your Facebook business page. Remember you got to pin it. Or if somebody emails me and it's in the email signature, I can kind of keep up on a business, make sure that they are implementing it properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Smart. No, you have to do that.
it doesn't matter how amazing a video is, if they don't know how to use it, it's worthless.
100%. One of my, as far as work, like when I'm filming something, I need to know where's it going to go? Where's it going to go? Like, is this for a LinkedIn audience? Is this an Instagram story? Or is photos the priority here? Where is this going to live? Is this going to be on YouTube? Like, as soon as you know the destination, then you can deploy all your resources to be like, oh, well, then it needs to be like this.
Yeah.
And it needs to have these call to actions or what
Yeah.
have you. So if we put it out on Twitter, like we got to pin that tweet or something like that. So for sure, like you have to thoroughly know natively the destination of where these videos are going to end up. So that's a very, very smart touch. Are you a one-man band? Are you comfortable answering that?
No, I'm not a one-man band. I do stuff on my own, but usually I have somebody with me. There's
Okay.
usually me and at least one other person. Have people that help me edit. I have animators, graphic design artists. So really, I was a one-man band, but I'm transitioning into creating a video agency that can service all those different areas. So.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
I wanted to comment real quick on the video business card thing, because you got me. I like what you were saying about the implementation stuff. So I think that just with video, a lot of times people jump into it too fast.
Yeah.
And start creating. So if you're a videographer or you're the creator, you're maybe used to jumping in a little too fast, and the same for the business owner. They don't know how to do any of this. So, but we provide a 1-hour strategy session, and within that strategy session that comes before the video, like you need to be really, really firm about what they want. And if you don't believe, if you say, hey, how are you different? How is your business different? And you're not convinced, well, you're the first line of defense. You need to pull more out of them. You need to, like, why did you really get into this industry? Like you said, you just did it because it's cool. Like
Right.
that doesn't convince me. Like, let's talk some more about this. You got to dig and dig and dig And then once you feel like, wow, now we really got something, then you go out and make it.
That's very important. And I'm glad that you made that distinction. And I'm impressed by that. And I'll tell you why, because that's what a director does. That's what a filmmaker does. It's like a director who, let's just say, there's writer directors like a Tarantino or something, but there's also directors like David Fincher who are some of the best in the world who don't write their own scripts, and they got to know what every page means. And that might mean sitting down with the writer and saying, "What did you mean by this word? Why is it this and not that? Why? Why is this italicized? I need to know." Okay, and it, so on and so forth. Same thing with the actors. Like, you can't just settle for a mediocre performance. Like, if you have to, we might have to redo this. If you have to, we might have to film this in a different location because it's not working, or we have to recast this. Like, you can't just phone it in. Like, every story that, what I like about what you're saying is like trying to understand, you're starting with why, right? And you want to tap into the emotion because at the end of the day, to maximize, the whole reason why you're doing this video is to amplify a message. And if the way you want to connect with other people, you have to tap into their emotions. And if you can do that with a business, you're going to, I don't want to speak so lofty, but you could potentially transform their business, or at least have an impact with their message, for sure.
100%, 100%. And you gotta figure that out on the front end. You gotta dig, you gotta explore, you gotta get there together.
That's right. Yeah. Oh man. And I don't want to speak for you, but for me, I can say sometimes, when I've filmed some interviews or even recorded some podcasts with people that I like, sometimes it's like pulling teeth because people haven't really thought that deep into it, and so you have to set the proper expectations. Maybe you're not the right person for this job then. Maybe this isn't going to really work, because if you're not willing to give me those emotions or tap into why you're doing this, like, this is not going to be a good fit. And so it's important, I've had to do that with weddings. Like, you get what you pay for. And if you're not willing to put your neck out there, I might not be the best fit for this, because here's what I can do. Here's what I can do for you. If you don't like that, and if you want something else, well, I can recommend somebody that does that for you. Right. So you're sort of, it's kind of like dating. You want to know, if is this a business that you want to be engaged with, in the long run? Because if you can form that relationship, it's just good business for everybody in the long term, for sure. That's cool. Have you had clients that you've been working with for a year plus?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's cool. So how do you provide this? I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm fascinated by this. How do you provide value for a business, and that when it's not just checking off the boxes of like, we do this, we do that, like years down the line, and you've wowed them a few times, how do you continue to wow them with what you do?
I think you just gotta care about them and what they care about. And it's like a marriage. How can you stay married for 20 years? You have to care about that person, and you have to understand what they want, what they need, and then you just have to deliver that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like knowing their love language, I guess. And maybe that means telling them that they're beautiful, or buying them a gift, or like helping them out in a new way. So I guess you have to remain flexible in that way. That's amazing, man. I really respect what you do. It's hard, because so many of us, and it's also part of the reason why I would do these Facebook Lives, is I wanted to help creators make money, and some of the advice that I would give is, if you have camera equipment but you don't have friends and you can't produce your own film, then I implore you to go find someone that's making a movie and go record behind the scenes footage for their movie. Not only do you get some reps in, but you get to meet some contacts, and you can provide upfront value for a filmmaker who's going to want, behind the scenes documentary footage, right? That could potentially be, if you're good, more valuable than the film itself. And just get out there, right? Was sort of my advice, because I want to see the film economy prosper, because what's good for the country, the gig economy, is good for me, and I wanted to see more of that. So I have so much respect for what you do, because nobody in video language, community, we're not really talking about business. We're not talking about how to make a dollar. Like, if you have a Canon 5D Mark IV and a beautiful lens, go make $1. It takes work. It takes skill, you know, and we don't talk about how to make money enough. Not in a sleazy way, because and I struggled with this for a long time, like the conversation about money. Like for a while there, I did so much free work because I just wanted to work. I didn't even want to have the money conversation. I must have filmed 10 music videos before I finally charged somebody for one, because I just wasn't comfortable with saying, "Hey, $500 for this," just because I gotta cover my costs, But to be able to have that conversation on how to provide value and how you, I mean, I did this great podcast with a filmmaker who is a wicked wedding videographer. This guy is just amazing, and you know, he wasn't afraid to talk about upselling and how to make money, and I was just like, filmmakers, creatives, we don't have that conversation. I can't tell you how many young kids have reached out to me to help me, asking for my help to help them produce a feature film, but they don't have a business plan on how to make their money back, and it's like, damn, we don't talk about that enough. And so I really appreciate you having this conversation with me, because not only are you creative, but it sounds like you're a smart businessman, and those are few and far in between. I don't know why, but they are.
Yeah. I think that a lot of creative people, when they approach a project for a business, they're thinking about the creative side of it, and that's why they're scared to ask for money,
That was me for a long time.
because they're thinking about what they're going to get out of it.
That's
But if you think about the business owner, and really try to understand how they feel and where they're coming from, then you're approaching it more from the perspective of you're helping somebody and you're providing a service to where it's more about what they're getting out of it and not you getting a new piece of art.
100%. And I struggled with that for a very long time, until I realized that businesses, they're paying you not to live your dream, not to have fun, not to have a good time. They're paying you for the bullshit that they don't want to do or they can't do. They're paying you for your expertise. And so don't feel weird or guilty or ashamed of charging them for that, because that transaction is the easiest form um of barter that you can really have, of a transaction, is money. It's like, cool, it's good for them, they get to write it off, and it's good for you because you get to pay your bills. So it makes the most sense. And when you're 19, I don't really know if you're taught that, or at least I wasn't in 2007. I wasn't taught that. So
You know?
it took a long time before I realized. I mean, I had to read business books. I had to watch business seminars and like learn about why companies even exist and how they make money, and apply that to my business before. And that's how I was able to form a marriage with filmmaking and commerce. And so, woo,
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it took a long time for me to figure out as well.
that's what you got to do. You got to just look at what you do is just like what anybody else does. We're all working here.
That's right, 100%, man. So Trey, I've had a great time having this conversation, but I want to do right by you. Is there anything else that you wanna tap into? Because I'm looking at the scoreboard. We're on the same team. We're winning, and so we can afford some 3-point shots right now. We can afford to miss a few, and if you want to get weird and get into the weeds, I'm more than happy to do that. Anything else you wanna get into while I have you on the call?
Um, just off the top of my head, I'm sure there's some things, but I uh, I just noticed what you said recently about your superpower being your vulnerability.
Hmm.
Uh, it's cool when you hear somebody say something and it clicks. Cause I watch your stuff, but I never thought that exact thing that you said. But
Yeah.
you said it, I was like, man, he's right. That is him. He's able to just speak his mind, and so that's something that I admire, but I also like struggle with. And there's times where I feel like I'm very straightforward and genuine, but then I'll say the wrong thing and hurt somebody's feelings, and then it's like, okay, how can I avoid that? And then I end up being like, thinking, now am I being too PC and
Yeah.
too nice?
I'm a big believer in it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Going back to trust, like what we were talking about with your father-in-law. He needs to trust you and so on to bring you into the circle. And so it's the same thing with social media. It's the same thing with connective tissue, like Knives Monroe. My first impression, like I assume nobody knows anything about me. Because I'm a nobody. I'm assuming nobody knows jack shit. So every piece of content that I create, what do I want them to get out of this? And the first thing that I want them to get out of it is I'm spilling my guts out. And so because I'm spilling my guts out, it's not because I like to hear the sound of my own voice. It's because I want to listen to what you have to say. And so sometimes that means tearing my heart out and giving it to people and say, how are you doing? And you'd be surprised how many people just want to talk about themselves because they keep a lot of stuff in. And I'm very interested in that, And so it's the same thing with filmmakers. There's so much like pretense of trying to look cool or be cool or say the right thing all the time. And it's like, if I hurt somebody's feelings, it's not because I'm trying to hurt your feelings. Like I've only been angry like so rarely in my life where I'm fucking berserk. All I see is red, angry. And it's never my intention to hurt somebody's feelings. And if I do, it's just because I want to cut the bullshit, cut the crap, like your father-in-law did. And I want to get to a higher level of consciousness. I had read once that you cannot solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. You need a higher form of consciousness to solve a problem. And I'm a problem solver. My whole purpose in life is, and it's funny, and you said it, and I'm not going to lie, it made me very happy. When you were watching some of my rants back in the day, and if I said the right thing at the right time, that made you be like, "Oh, that's cool. I needed to hear that." That's why I do it. It's in my mission statement on my podcast, which is to activate dormant creatives to really just be the most that they can be. There's so many people that need permission to be excellent. They need permission to be vulnerable. And so my superpower is not that I'm the most vulnerable or something, but it's to be vulnerable first. So I implore you, man, like this whole PC thing, don't say anything that you're not willing to support and back up and everything, but don't be afraid to be wrong. Everybody wants to be right all the time. Like political correctness is simply about being perceived optically that you're right, when really there's more power in changing your mind. There's more power in saying, yeah, I don't believe that anymore. I change my mind all the time. Like my friends hate me for that. They'll be like, you said this was blah 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 last year, and I'm like, yeah, but I saw it 10 more times and I changed my mind. Like that's power. So the whole vulnerability thing, that's just something I learned about myself. There are some people that are like Peter McKinnon that make the best image, and that's their superpower, and that's cool. And I feel bad using Peter in this way, but I don't think he's the most vulnerable. I think he's 51% more of a salesman than he is, than I see the real person. And I bet he's a great guy, great father, great human, but he puts up this invisible barrier to kind of I think protect his image and his maybe feelings and personality. But the times I connect to somebody like him the most is when he's being real and he's talking about depression or talking about burnout. And it's like, that's the stuff that I care about, because the knowledge, I can Google anything, I can Wikipedia anything and learn how to do something. But the emotional stuff of like, how do you learn to accept yourself, love yourself, like yourself, feel good about yourself? You teach a person that, they're set for life. I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. And my hope is that, we can find ways to be successful and genuine at the same time, because, I work with a lot of different businesses, and I'm interacting with successful people. And in my opinion, most a lot of successful people, you don't really feel like you're getting to know them as much as you would like. It feels good to get to know somebody, but usually the people that will just like stop and show you their whole self, with who they really are, they might not be the next millionaire or whatever, but you know,
Right.
not that, I'm not trying to be a millionaire, but I do want to be successful and I want to provide for my family, and nothing wrong with being a millionaire either, of course,
Of course.
obviously, but just finding that balance between being yourself and also being successful. It's not it hasn't been easy, but it's something that I desire.
You said something earlier, like the first 10 minutes of this podcast that I wrote down. And you had said, when you were something like 15, 16, 17, around the time that you're moving, around the time of your parents' divorce, around the time when you're tapping into what you're good at, you know, and also, to use your word, like quitting something and moving on, but also like going to college, and you're going to give things time, and you just seemed so thoughtful. You seem so kind of in your head, self-aware, like at that age. And I think that's very important. And it struck out to me like emotional. And one thing that I'm very big on is emotional intelligence, EQ. And the type of person that I am, like what you see right now, that's how I am in business meetings. That's how I've been in interviews, to a fault. Sometimes I won't get the business because I'm this way and I'm not wearing the suit and I'm not telling people what they want to hear. But that's my way of knowing then I don't want to work with you, because I can't put on a mask and go outside. I mean, unless of course it's to get water and I don't want to get a disease. Yeah, I'll put on a mask. But no, like I can't put on a mask of masculinity that is not on brand or not who I am, because I can't keep up with the lies. Like I just can't. And so sometimes that hurts my wallet. But on the times where people get it and they like it and they want that culture and they need that business and they're refreshed by that perspective, it does my wallet good. And it's easier for me and more sustainable, excuse me, to be myself in perpetuity, because you're this is what you get, and it's easier. So is it risky? Yeah. Is it, sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna be me. You had mentioned meeting your future father-in-law. When I met my future father-in-law, I had already knocked up his daughter. So Claire was already pregnant. And I remember shaking this guy's hand and being like, "What's up, Dad? I'm your son." Like I didn't want to impress him. I wasn't trying to earn his respect. I had already, I did it my way already. And we're great. We have a great relationship with each other. I think he loves me and respects me. But guess what? Sometimes that doesn't work all the time. Sometimes, when I was in middle school or high school and I got in a fight with a bully, it's because my mouth, I wasn't going to tell the bully what they wanted to hear. I didn't bump into him and say, "My bad." I bumped into him, kept walking, and then the bully had to turn me around and say, "What the fuck's the matter with you?" And I said, "What the fuck's the matter with you?" And then before I know it, I'm on the floor. And my CDs are everywhere, sprayed across the hall, stuff like that. And so you have to be willing to know yourself and say, "This is what it is," and roll with the punches and accept all the stuff that comes with it. And I think people who are smart in business actually really, really appreciate that. They want to work with not a loose cannon, don't get me wrong, but they want to work with someone that they can know, "Oh, this guy's providing upfront truth. And so I'm going to tell them what's really going on." And so you cut the bullshit, you save time, and you're able to form a relationship, a business relationship that has a good foundation, a strong foundation. And that took a decade to learn too. But once you go around the block a few times, you know what works for you. And so if radical candor, something that I can tap into, does not work for you, then you have to do what works for you as well. Everybody is different, for sure.
Totally, man. We're all created way different, and you need to just understand how you were made, and go from there. I mean, it's gonna be a disaster if we don't.
It's going to be a disaster. real quick, I want to ask you just a couple of rapid fire questions before we sign off.
Yeah.
So you had said in the beginning that that filmmaking was the thing that you wanted to do, and you did get to do it. You know, I've never won an award like a 24-hour film festival award. I've never won anything because I suck. But for you, you know, you've been around the block a few times. What were some film directors or movies that like inspired you, and you were like, "Whoa, that I want to do that," or something like that?
The very first one was Shyamalan,
Hmm.
and after a while, I really got into Scorsese and Tarantino are probably my two favorites.
Yeah, those are big ones.
Yeah.
What is a project that is on the internet that people can search for that you're proud of, and you're like, maybe it didn't get as much love as it should have, but what's something that we can search for you and be like, whoa, this is dope.
We did a short film that was pretty much a true story. We found this transcript from a guy that lost his wife in 9/11,
Oof.
and we turned that transcript into like our script for the short film called Ground Zero.
Whoa.
Um, we did that, and then we did a short film called Dose. So Dose was,
On YouTube.
I think it's on maybe Vimeo.
Okay, cool. I gotta look for that. That sounds fascinating.
So we did that, and then we did a short film called Dose, um, which got into some film festivals, Central Florida Film Festival, maybe like three or two or three different festivals. But we actually had a producer that gave us a little budget, and we had a cast and crew of like probably 15 people.
That's the best.
Yeah. So, but that was kind of the last thing that I really like did on that level, and that was maybe like I don't know 2 3 years ago, and then the rest. So
Yeah. What is obviously, look, and maybe we can save this for another podcast, but this pandemic is affecting our state of mind. It's affecting our businesses. It's affecting our country economically. I mean, we're not in a recession yet, but by the time this quarter is finished, I mean, we're going to be able to call it a recession for sure. So many people are losing their jobs. Obviously, we want this to pass, and it will pass. But what does the future look like for Trey Vollmer? Like, what do you want to do? What are some benchmarks that you want to hit? Obviously, you have a young daughter, a newborn baby, and you want to spend some time with her. But what do you have to look forward to for this decade? What are some big goals? What are some short-term goals?
I think for me, when I think too hard about how it's all going to play out, I get overwhelmed and
Fair.
discouraged. But my hope is ultimately in God, and it's not in the things of this world. And that's the only thing I have to turn to when I feel overwhelmed by this world. So that's very, that's the superpower that keeps me stable and at peace.
That's heavy, man. And I guess my last question is, where can my listeners and the people who are watching right now, where can they find you on the internet? Say, I'm a small business and I want to see what you're about. What can you do for me? But also, where can people support the cause?
TreyVollmer.com. That's my website.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to link that in the description. Trey offered so much upfront value and was very honest. Every question that I asked them, he was very giving in that. So something tells me when it comes to your business, or even your own personal brand, I think he can help you out as well. So if you want to reach out to him, his website's going to be in the description. Trey, this was a lot of fun, man. I was
Yeah.
so excited to do this. Thank you for allotting some time to be able to chat with me and tell your wife thank you for letting me have this time. It's so selfish, it's self-indulgent to do a podcast, and so I know it's a lot on a Sunday, and thank you so much for your time, man. It means a lot.
You too, man. I enjoyed it tremendously.
That's why you're the best. I appreciate you, Trey. Hey, don't be a stranger, man. Reach out, and I want to do another one of these very soon.
I would love to, buddy.
You're the best. I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
All right, you take care.
Take care, brother.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for watching this podcast. This is episode 94 with Trey Vollmer. Really cool guy. I appreciated him quite a bit. You can find this podcast on Spotify. Just search for Knives Monroe versus the podcast. Find me on YouTube. Just search up Knives Monroe. You can find me on all the things, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm having a lot of fun on TikTok. So at Knives Monroe on TikTok, where I make these little vlogs and I'm trying to do weird things on TikTok. Well, I guess like everybody else. So thank you very much for listening. If there's anything else you want to see, let me know, because I enjoy this live stream. I enjoy this process. And so the more I can do, the better. So I love you guys so much. Keep a force field around your heart. Wash your hands, motherfuckers.